I would say we just watched The Farewell this weekend.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that too.
And maybe just do a little bit of... There we go. Alright, so we're talking about Farewell.
Well, I liked everything about it, from the writing to the direction to the writing again. The writing was really good, and all the actors were so good at it, I think.
What is this movie? What are we talking about?
The Farewell.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's give us the premise?
I thought we weren't doing that.
Or just the basics.
Okay, The Farewell is a movie centering on a Chinese family that is spread from China. Some are still in China and some are out in the world in other countries. And our main character we follow is Chinese American, played by Awkwafina, who is really, really good, I think. She was so flashy and showy in Crazy Rich Asians, and she played like so...
That was her?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was like transformative.
Wow. I spent the entire time thinking of like, whoever this person is, she's got star quality.
Yeah.
She's going to go somewhere.
No, in Crazy Rich Asians, not to get too far afield, but she plays such a stereotype that it's like...
Yeah.
I don't know too much about her other than that, but I kind of assume, well, she's just...
She's like a pop star, right?
Yeah.
With a terrible name.
Yeah. I mean, she's already famous in China and Hong Kong.
And America.
And now America. But like even before that, she was a big name here.
Right.
In Asia. But yes, she turns in such a subdued, really nuanced performance as the daughter who is like very conflicted about the goings on.
She had that whole like anchored neck thing that like drove her through the scenes that like really like
yeah.
Oh no.
There was a good physicality. Yeah, how do I do that?
Still going?
Still going.
I won't go to me again. So yes, it was a total physicality that of like not defeated in a way, but like sort of driving in a, I don't know, not downtrodden. Help me out.
Yeah, well, the events of the movie are sad, so she is appropriately sad. But I mean, the central conflict is the grandma is dying, but the family is not going to tell her that she's dying, so they cannot express their sadness directly to the grandmother. So she has to pretend to be happy while she's around the grandmother, and that takes a toll on her.
Mm-hmm.
Which, given that premise, it's not a cry fest.
Yeah.
It's a really dynamic, funny, touching, interesting movie, and I think even if you don't know anything about Chinese culture, it's a good introduction to it. And it's not explaining, but it like immerses you in the culture, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised at how knowing the premise, how funny it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's such a downer of a subject, but
I really liked that aspect to it. And of course we live in China, so we know it. So it was more about like seeing aspects of the culture that we recognize. And then also we're not Chinese, so there's some stuff that was still new to us too, like especially the dynamics of the family.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in a Chinese family. We live in an American family, even in China. But stuff like there's always just an old man hanging around who has nothing to do with the proceedings and doesn't really care. That's a really funny touch that runs through the movie.
The fishing jacket.
Yeah, he's got
grandpa.
He's got his grandpa jacket. I originally assumed it was in Beijing, but I think it's not in Beijing. I think it's just like an East Coast city.
Oh yeah.
I think, or maybe it's a suburb. They called it something else that wasn't Beijing.
They didn't show any of the major places. They showed that Arc a couple of times.
I don't know if that's a Beijing place.
Yeah, neither do I. It didn't seem like a big enough thing to be a Beijing
anyway,
landmark.
they like part of the sadness was expressed in like our main character Lulu is her name, expressing that like she feels that she missed out on not growing up in China because her family moved to America when she was 2. And so there is like, the city is different. There's no like going back to reminisce about your memories, which kind of goes hand in hand with, like, live your life and don't be scared of the past and don't be scared of the future, which is the justification for not telling Grandma she's dying.
And yeah, that's culturally the significance, you think?
Yeah, but because also I think the big lie is that Grandma is dying, and this happens in the first scene of the movie. This is not giving anything away, but there are also like a bunch of little lies. Even the American family tells each other throughout. So it is like Lulu struggles with this big lie, but she also behaves in similar ways to spare her parents bad news, or there's different things they're all keeping from each other to protect each other's feelings. And so I think in a very interesting way the movie explores whether that's like a kindness or a bad thing to do, and in an interesting way argues for the fact that it's a kindness, even though that's not a very the American way is like, people deserve to know. People deserve the information, but even Americans lie to each other a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit car sick doing this.
Well, I would just, without a full review of that,
it's really good. You should watch it though.
It's a really good example of there's too much here.
Yeah.
This is to put in an hour and a half movie is amazing that they were able to put that much story into there about people, about culture, about change.
Yeah.
And that's a story that's been around for years, been lived. It's a true story, been lived by people. It's been re-examined, turned into a story, turned into a news story, turned into a movie, and has been examined and looked over so many times. And amazingly, they've got it right.
Yeah,
it didn't turn into like My Fat Greek Wedding or something like that.
Well, I think that's a good counterpoint. I mean, I liked My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I mean, it's fine, but
okay, so I think when you focus on like the top-down big concept first, that's like you have your character in focus and they have words coming out of their mouth, but behind them you essentially have a blank slate because you haven't bothered to consider where they are, what they're doing, what their motivations are, what the secret motivations are, what's secret from themselves even. And whereas if you're creating a small moment, then you can add on, and then your background is full of details that also reinforce the story. I mean, it's a jokey example, but like Arrested Development having an attic full of dolls with Jeffrey Tambor hiding out and having a tea party, and like that's so much more. The details of the model home being filled with all this crap and this man slowly losing it as he hides from. Spoiler alert. Is better than just like having him be like, well, I'm not taking responsibility. Blah 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 blah. Like, I think that's what takes you from just having a plot to having a story.
Right, which is what we hope to try to do, even not just in our big story, but even whatever little thing that we make on YouTube of it's the baggage that we brought to Luzhou.
Yeah.
Like getting that, it sounds that simple, but getting that out on a continuous basis and an honest but insightful way is really, really hard. I mean, art should be hard. And it shouldn't just be like, let's point the camera at somebody making 𝗵𝗂𝗶 downstairs and be like, that's us. Like, I have nothing to do with it. I'm going to eat it, and it's great, but, like, that's not the story. I want to tell the story of how did I come from where I come from.
Are you looking at something, or are you, like, telling a whole story?
Yeah, and I can't tell the story of in the 1600s, 𝗣𝘂 was made by a poor farm woman who needed her husband to have food out. Like, I mean, that's useless to me because especially, and it's more useless for you to listen to me tell that story because it's not my story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that what it is, what do we have to bring to the table, and that's with 𝗣𝘂 is this a huge story, multi-generational, talking about human fatalism, like and how funny it is, and how sad it could be, and how funny it could be at the same time, like, is a bigger scope than just like here's a movie.
Yeah.
Isn't grandma funny?
Yeah. Yeah, and so it is like everyone is kind of coming to terms with their relationship to their culture and their national identity. It's a multi-generational family that some of them live still in China, and some of them live in America, and some of them live in Japan. And so it is like, and it's also accomplishes both, if you're a Western audience or a foreign audience who's not familiar with these cultures, it does introduce you to that, but it is also like a very specific portrait of this family and the family dynamics that makes it feel like super specific, but then through that specificity very universal, which I think is what the best art does. And it's definitely...
And the way that we're led in through...
You're getting to know these characters. You're not getting to know, like, oh, this is a Chinese family.
Right.
They
and
they are Chinese, but
our
they
main
are
story
family.
Is the woman that lives in New York.
Yeah.
That is familiar just enough with her traditional Chinese roots.
Yeah.
That she's aware of them, but her Chinese isn't perfect.
Right.
So like it's just enough where you meet me halfway.
Yeah.
Kind of character, and I'll tell you what I can about you know. So it's not. I don't think it's an alienating character, or it's not. I'm just gonna tell you kind of character. It's not, she's not telling us like this is the traditional way that my grandmother would always do this.
And
like,
I don't think the movie has selected a character who is correct in the conflict, or that someone is the winner of the conflict. Everyone. The basic premise is the grandmother is sick with cancer, and she's going. Doctors haven't told her. That's the whole point.
The director has spoiled this herself, so it's not. This isn't a big spoiler. This is in the promotional.
Well, turn off. You should just see it before.
It's too late now.
We say. So the doctor has told the family that she's going to die, but they are not going to tell the grandmother, which is a common practice in China.
And that's dealt with all of the problems that, as you say that.
Yeah.
Even knowing that for years and years and watching that in the film, there's still like waves of like,
we had a student whose father was diagnosed with cancer, and they weren't going to tell him. They didn't tell him. And she was very upset because she was like, if I go home to say goodbye, he's going to know that something is up. And then so we were totally flabbergasted and at a loss. So fortunately our Chinese colleague was like, here's the lie you can make up for why you went home. We're having this special holiday. I'll write you the letter. So she did get to go home and say goodbye.
Yeah, and to make it more about us is she was one of the closer students that we had to us.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of the day after lunch or something like that. Like we found her really upset just walking around between going home for lunch, and we just freaked. I don't even know what to do with this situation. Like, tell your father. Even in the movie,
how can they not tell him?
Even in the movie, it was brought up like this is illegal. Like, well, here it is. Here's the excuses that you can give to make. Luckily a coworker happened by and was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she calmly went through here's the process of what's going on, and we just all we could really do is like step back and be like, I guess if this is the best way to do with this,
your dad is dying.
All I know is I'm sorry. If you we'll buy you some pizza or something. What?
But I think this movie did a good job of we were familiar with that as a concept, but justifying it and explaining why they do it. And I think I don't know that I would I mean, my family members don't have that expectation. And like when you were sick, the doctors would tell me the stuff and not tell you, and so it was like it was up to me whether I told you medical news or not. And they would not have thought bad of me if I kept things from you. But I didn't, because I felt that you had the expectation.
There's a possibility that they might have felt the other way of like, you're being a bad wife. What are you doing,
telling him he can't deal with that burden. But I think also, like, you would not have had the expectation that I was going to keep important medical news from you. Whereas in the movie, they point out that the grandmother had done this depending, to the grandfather. She didn't tell him until it was, like, obvious that he was going to die. And part of that is, like, that the family carries the emotional burden so you can continue living a happy life until your life is really about to be over.
Live it up, Pops.
So it's interesting. I still would not make that choice, I don't think, but I understand it a little better.
Yeah,
and I think that's how the granddaughter of the movie comes away.
Yeah, it's weird to have culturally, even like as a man, like a Chinese American woman much younger than me have a character where I'm like, oh, I think I know what she's going through. This is whoa.